Hey everybody, how's it going? It's the Daily Shooter, and if you didn't think 2020 could get any worse, go ahead and move to California and live under Gavin Newsom. He'll make it worse for you. Today we're going to talk about some new gun bills that Gavin Newsom recently signed that are going to completely change the Second Amendment for the state of California. This channel is proud to be supported by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Make sure you check that link in the description box, become a member, and donate when you can. Because when you hear something bad that's happened to the Second Amendment, guaranteed these guys are going to be the ones that are going to step up to fight it. So become a member, get that card, and join the fight to keep our rights intact. Also by the USCCA. The USCCA is one membership card that you need to have. Because if you ever use a firearm to defend yourself, the USCCA is just one phone call away, and they will be there to defend you. They will stick with you, and they will take care of you through the entire process until you prove your innocence. So go ahead and check the links in the description box below. Support both of those companies because they're both supporting you. Now, I lived in California for about 43 years, and in those 43 years, I saw a lot of gun control come down the California pipeline. It seemed like every 6 months or so, there was a new set of gun control bills that were winding their way through the legislature and would end up at the governor's desk. But the California landscape, political landscape, has changed. So back in the day, if you had a dozen gun control bills make it to the governor's desk, you didn't know if he was going to sign all of them, none of them, or just maybe a couple of them. You weren't really sure what was going to happen. But now that the Democrats have a supermajority in the California legislature, and they have the Democrat, one of the worst governors in the entire country, in Gavin Newsom, all the legislature has to do is simply write a gun control bill, sign it, doesn't matter what it is really, send it up to the governor's desk, and you're almost guaranteed that he's going to sign it. I mean, there was a point where I was wondering how much else could they possibly do in California without just outright banning firearms altogether. And they would come up with something new every single time, and that's what's happened here. It's sort of like death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? So we've had some more gun control go up to Gavin Newsom's desk, and of course he signed it. So let's talk about the two more important ones that he just recently signed on September 29th of 2020. So the two bills that we're going to be talking about today are going to be 2362 and 2847. I've mentioned both of these in videos in the past. They're both pretty significant because, again, they attack the Second Amendment in a way where they're not just outright banning firearms, but at the same time, they're making the Second Amendment almost impossible to practice in the state of California. The first one's going to be 2362. 2362 is a bill that Gavin Newsom signed that essentially attacks small businesses. It attacks the FFLs. It attacks those shops that are trying to sell you the tools for your Second Amendment rights. Okay? It goes after them, it imposes fines, it imposes penalties over stupid little minute things that absolutely nobody cares about. But they need to come up with some new gun control, right? And so since they need to come up with some new gun control, let's go ahead and maybe take our focus away from the people who are buying them for a second, and let's go ahead and attack the people that are selling them. That's what this does. It attacks the people who are selling these products, and it makes it so hard for them to do business in a state where it's already almost impossible to do business in. So if you look at FFLs in the state of California, they're not really making that much money. I can tell you that much. If they're not making much money at all, the markups are very low. The fees, the costs to actually operate in California are extremely high. The licenses, the renewals, the rent. I mean, you know what it costs to live in California, right? It's expensive. It's just as expensive to rent, space for your business. And so they're already just, kind of barely scraping by. But now the government comes in and says, you know what, we're going to make it even harder for you by imposing fines of like $3,000 for making a simple error that could just be a small clerical error that nobody ever paid attention to in the past. We're going to fine you $3,000. Well, guess what? There goes that much profit. Well, I can tell you one thing. Nobody's going to stay in business if they're not making a profit. We wake up in the morning, we hustle, we try and work, we try and make money. That's what we do. We got to feed our kids. We got to pay our bills. We got to take care of our families. And if you running an FFL is not taking care of that, there's going to be people out there that are just going to simply close down and move on to something that's going to be, better for them in a financial sense. And so California's already made it so hard to operate, and this bill is going to make it that much more hard to operate because, again, it's going to eat at their profits and make it not worth it to own an FFL in the state of California. So, again, they're taking their attack on multiple angles trying to pretty much stop everybody from being able to practice the Second Amendment in the state of California. Now, the next bill we're going to be talking about is AB 2847, and we've talked about 2847 extensively on this channel. 2847 will essentially decimate the handgun roster. Okay, so if you live in the state of California, you know what the roster is, right? It's a list of things that have been approved for you to buy that are deemed safe by the state of California. It's already a small list. It contains tons of duplicates. It is just, the roster is one of the worst things that you'll experience if you live in the state of California. But the bill 2847, on the surface, it looks like it's trying to ease regulations on the roster, when in reality, what it's going to do is it's going to decimate the roster. So you think there's very little things on there right now? You think it's pretty bad right now? Well, it's going to get worse now. So this is going to start taking effect, I believe, July 1st of 2022. And essentially what 2847 does is it lowers the requirements for something new to be placed on the roster. So previously, something that would be placed on the roster would have to have micro stamping in 3 different areas. So on the primer, maybe the case head, so forth, right? So somehow, whatever was put on the roster would have to have a way in order to imprint those serial numbers in those 3 different places. But now what they've done is they've lowered the requirements to only one place. So that could simply be a firing pin with a primer, and it's going to leave a stamp of that serial number on the primer. And as long as you have that, and the other features like mag release stuff and a safety flag, chamber indicator, things like that, as long as you have those features, well, guess what? Now you can be on the roster. So people are thinking, okay, well, maybe there's going to be some new stuff on there, but here's the problem. Every time something new is added to the roster after July 1st of 2022, 3 things have to be taken off of the roster. That means that you have 1 new thing there, yippee, right? And then 3 other things now have to be removed. So let's say that they add something that you have absolutely no interest in. Let's say they add something that nobody has any interest in, right? But then they take away, I don't know, let's say Glocks 17, 19, 26. Okay? They take those 3 models off. Guess what? Those are no longer available. You're not able to get them in the state of California. But you got this one with a stupid micro stamp on it that absolutely nobody wants. Guess what? Another gun comes on, right? They put that on the roster. 3 more come off. That's 3 more. Let's say that they go after CZs. Take a few models of CZs off the roster. Now, the two of the most popular brands that are out there have now been essentially removed from the roster in the most popular caliber. That is what Gavin Newsom signed. So they are attacking small business. They are attacking the business owners. And at the same time, they're also attacking the Second Amendment rights of their citizens by, again, further limiting what they have access to. So, like I was saying before, Gavin Newsom does not like the Second Amendment, and he will do whatever it takes to basically take the Second Amendment down to its basic core so that they still have a fight in the circuit courts. Okay, so obviously there's going to be lawsuits because of all of this stuff. You have the Firearms Policy Coalition, you have Calguns Foundation, you have the Firearms Policy Foundation, you have all these different places that are obviously going to be filing lawsuits about this stuff. But they could say that it doesn't necessarily restrict people's Second Amendment rights because it doesn't take away their freedom to own something. Okay? Not that you can't get the thing that you want, but it doesn't take away the core right. That's their argument all the time. That's not my argument. That's the argument that they actually use when they go to court. So they kind of work around the core of the Second Amendment to cut out everything else until basically one day you're going to be left with a musket. That's kind of where California's going with it. And they're going to say, well, we haven't taken away the Second Amendment because you can still get your musket. You can still use black powder. That's where they're headed. That's basically what they're trying to get down to in the state of California. So again, these are bills that we've talked about in the past. They made it through the California legislature, in some cases fast-tracked, or they were bills that were gutted and amended. You could have a bill that starts off saying that trash pickup is going to be every Thursday, and we're going to make that a state-mandated thing. We're going to make it a law that every Thursday, that's when trash pickup is going to be. That bill makes its way into the legislature, it goes through committee, and then once it's through committee, they basically take out all of the language from that, rewrite it into a gun control bill, and then they send it up so it doesn't have to go back through committee again. It is incredible what they've come up with in the state of California, and this is what they want for the entire country. Do not be fooled. If Democrats had their way, this is what would happen in the entire country. California is just the proving ground for this type of thing. So if you don't live there, still pay close attention. So to all of you patriots who I know live in California, and I know there's a lot of you out there, remember the next election is coming up in 2022. Okay, that's going to be your chance to get out there in bigger numbers and actually do something about it. If you don't do something about it, you don't have the right to whine about it. Okay, you have to go out and you have to actually affect change. And if you go out there and you vote and things still happen, now you can go ahead and whine about it because you tried your best. So make sure you register, make sure you get out there, make sure you vote, make sure you support the Firearms Policy Coalition and any other pro-Second Amendment advocacy group that you want to, because they need all the help they can get to make sure that we can put out all these fires that are happening not only in California but across the country right now. So I want to thank you all very much for watching. Please like, subscribe. Have a great day.